Hi everyone, my name's Molly Bickell. I'm a current senior at Homewood High School and I plan on attending Auburn University in the fall. I am so beyond excited to speak with y'all today. I wanted to start by asking you this question that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but is also very human. Have you ever wondered if you truly belong? Like, is there a place for you? Your real, unfiltered, imperfect self? In your friend group? In your family, at school, at Discovery, or even in God's family? This question, is there a place for me, is something that every single one of us asks in different ways. Some of us feel it when we walk into a room full of people who seem to already know where to sit. Some of us feel it when we're trying to be a part of a group, but our word will say the wrong thing. Some of us feel it when we look around and think, everyone else has it together. Why don't I? And some of us don't say it out loud, but deep down we wonder, do people really see me? Do I matter here? Does God even have a place for me? And in middle school, these questions don't feel minor, but huge. From 6th to 8th grade, belonging feels like the most important concept. As friend groups are forming, identities are fragile, and approval feels like survival. So when I used to wonder, do I matter or do I belong? It didn't just hurt my feelings. It felt like the ground beneath me was cracking. This lack of association wasn't because I didn't belong, but it was because my world was so small. School, friendships, and family were my entire universe. And when I didn't feel belonging, it wasn't an imperfection that held me back, but the feeling of being invisible. And the truth, that feeling, that longing, it's not weakness. It's not immaturity. It's actually one of the deepest parts of being human. We were created to belong. To be honest, I carried one of these questions in my heart for a long time, that I was too scared to say out loud because I didn't want it to be true. I kept asking myself, do I belong in God's family, or am I not good enough like people say? For some background, I was created through in vitro fertilization, also known as IVF. IVF is a medical way doctors help some families have a baby. And even though that's simply how God brought me into this world, and the reason I'm here today, not everyone sees it that way. Growing up, I saw nothing wrong with my existence. I've always known that I was created through IVF. It was never a secret in my family. And for most of my childhood, it was just a fact. Like my eye color, or where I grew up. It didn't feel theological, it didn't feel heavy, and it never affected how I saw myself. It was simply how my parents loved me into existence, an act of hope and desire. But as I grew older, my perspective started to change. I started hearing conversations about IVF that made it feel heavier than it ever had before. Not in big public debates, but in small comments and offhanded remarks. And then one time in 11th grade, I heard someone say that they believed the use of IVF was a sin. And that one comment really affected me. It made me pause and wonder if people saw me differently once they knew. But what they didn't realize was that they weren't just talking about a medical process. They were talking about me, about my existence, about the way that God chose to give me life. For the first time ever, I felt like something about my existence might make me stand out in the wrong way. And even though I didn't show it on the outside, something inside me whispered, if they think my creation is wrong, does that mean that everyone else is right? Does this mean I'm not made in God's image? Does this mean I'm not really a child of God? These are painful questions, and they left me wondering if there was a place for me in the community of faith. And to be honest, I didn't think there was. I started to separate myself from the church, skipping fusion small groups, and stopped praying entirely. I truly believed that God wanted nothing to do with me, making me an intruder in the one place that is supposed to be filled with love and belonging. What helped me wasn't a perfect explanation. It was people. Friends who listened instead of judging. Leaders at the church who reminded me that God does not make accidents. And a community that showed me what theology alone sometimes couldn't. That belonging is lived out, not argued over. And through these people, I came to understand something deeply. My story doesn't disqualify me. God knew me, God wanted me, and God says I belong, just as I am. Hebrews 10:24-25 that we read earlier tonight says, "And let us consider how to provoke one another to love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." This verse gives us a clear picture of what real belonging looks like. It shows that belonging grows when we show up for each other and push each other to live through love. Hebrews reminds us that we don't belong just because we're in the same room. We belong because we encourage, support, and lift one another up. We don't want to sit at the table just because we're funny or interested or talented. We want to sit at the table because we're humans made in the image of God. And God created us to be connected to Him and to each other. People don't get the final word on who belongs. God does. IVF didn't make me less. It didn't make me less created or less loved. It didn't put me outside the family of God. If anything, it's a reminder that God's creativity is bigger than we can imagine, that His ways of bringing life into this world are not limited to what makes sense to everyone else. People may misunderstand, people may speak out of fear or from what they've been taught, but God has never looked at me or at you and said, "Your story disqualifies you." Instead, He says, "You are mine, you belong, and you're wonderfully made." But this talk isn't just about my story. It's about all of us. Every single person in this room has had a time in their life when they felt like they didn't belong. Whether it was a fear, a mistake, a family situation, a label someone else put on you, or maybe something about yourself that others will never truly understand. But God dreams of a community where no one is pushed aside, a community where no one sits alone, a community where we look out for those who feel unseen, and a community where your full self, your real self, is embraced. When Jesus welcomed people, He didn't say, "You'll belong when you're perfect or look like everyone else." He simply said, "Come. Come with your mistakes, come with your fears, come with your questions, come as your true self." So tonight, if you've ever wondered if you belong, hear this. In God's heart, in God's family, and right here in this community, you belong. Not because you earned it, but because God made you for it. You are not an accident, you are not a mistake, you're not less than, you're not outside of God's image, you are not outside of God's love. You are here on purpose. You belong here. Thank you.